It's Sundays.
Okay. Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
We're live.
You hear me?
Don't say anything incriminating.
I'm
sorry.
Okay,
You can hear me?
share this post. Yeah, share this post. Yeah, share this live. Share this live.
I'm gonna share it right now. Welcome. We're having our. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
To watch every video.
Or Nick. Nick also has. You call him Nick, like camera Nick? Yeah, he watches the videos for the docuseries.
Everyone?
He said he watched all of my lives. I don't know if he's gonna watch all of these, but it is a precedent set that he watched.
See what happened when he said that?
Why would you say that? That has never happened before. That has never happened before.
And y'all also
If you
know
hadn't said that, I was
Stop it.
manifesting.
Stop it. That has never happened before. Okay. All right, I'm gonna let Ari start it off. Here we go.
Fourth book we're reading. We're gonna do an audible. The original plan was to read Our Prison's Obsolete by Angela Y. Davis, but we had to do a little bit of audible. We read the Assata, an autobiography, and I'm really glad that we read this because I remember for a time period where it was heavily talked about and it was being passed around a little bit, and I had kind of had that thought of getting my hands on it and getting able to read it. And I'm planning to go back and read the chapters that I didn't read, and I'm excited to read the chapters that I didn't read. But it is it's very heavy on you reading some of these chapters and the different experiences that she had went through. It's really heavy, and it's really at times you just have to sigh. Heart breaks out for her. What were you just kind of thought? This is your first time reading it?
Yeah, this is my first time reading it, and honestly, the same thing. Before all of this had happened, I had heard the name Assata Shakur before, but I didn't know very much about her, or know very much about her story. So one of the things that has, when the book was initially brought into my attention and to the forefront, I was very interested to get a chance to read it. Unfortunately, at the time, I had a plethora of books that I was already going through and reading. So last night when we started reading it, I was very interested. I did the later evening sort of the shift, so I was a little bit tired towards the beginning of the book. But even just I stayed awake, I think, through most of both the forewords for it. And just the things that they were touching on the foreword and how those things still connect with today. And then I fell asleep and woke up multiple times while different people were reading. And I think the time where I woke up and was the most alert was a passage in which she was describing a sexual assault taking place. And that was very heavy. And it reminded me of a book by Maya Angelou that I read, where she also spoke about a sexual assault that happened to her. And I think both times the things that was the most heaviest for me was because of how well of writers they are. The emotion and the trauma really it really touches you, and it really connects with you, because of how well they write. And so I've only read about maybe like 15 to 20 pages, and the portion that I read was her speaking about teaching and her experience as I think a teacher assistant, and I thought that was very it was very profound, some of the ideologies and the philosophies that she went about using while she was teaching, and the way in which she ingratiated herself with the students, and even how she said she didn't like the position of power, the power dynamic of her always teaching to the students. And so she took time to let the students teach the class, and how that also sort of reminded them of why not to disrupt the class, because then the shoe would be on the opposite foot. And I think that things like that are, important lessons, important caveats to try to take away from, reading these things. Besides just hearing the story for somebody's autobiography, like what things about their personal beliefs and their personal ideology can we transfer over to the actions in our ideology. So that was some of my first thoughts from before I read the book, and then some of my thoughts from the passages which I heard in the passages that I read.
Just in general, this is your first time reading it, right?
Yeah.
And how much did you know about Assata Shakur before this?
So I knew she was a Black revolutionary. I knew that she had been accused of murder of an officer, and that at some point she basically fled to Cuba to I don't want to say avoid prosecution, but I mean, yeah, to avoid going through and being imprisoned. And they basically, as they tell us all when we have to go to court, that should we not show up for court, that we can be tried and sentenced in our absence. And so they tried and sentenced her in her absence, and she was convicted and is basically still has not returned, that we know of, to the United States, to basically avoid having to serve the sentencing for the conviction. But to go over a little more about what I read, to contrast with her educating, I kind of went over, I think it was 9 and 10, where it talks a little more on the other side about her being educated and her receiving information. And so she talks about this little spot she used to go to with her friend, and she said they would dress up and look real nice and sit down at this like cafe kind of place. And these people would approach her, and they'd sit down and they'd have conversations with these people that were from some like university that was nearby. I believe Columbia University, she said. But she would have conversations with these people, and at some point she began this friendship with a couple of people that were from Africa. And so at some point they're kind of probing her how she felt about the Vietnam War. This is during the Vietnam War era, prior to there being an uproar in opposition of the war. So definitely prior to all of the the Democratic and Republican National Conventions where they were protesting that, prior to the 8 people who were originally arrested in Chicago as part of the quote-unquote riots, prior to all of that, before there's a huge opposition to the war, she struck up this conversation with them about Vietnam and the war, and what the United States' intent was being there, and why this war was even happening. And essentially she came to understand that what she had known to be true or thought to be true about their occupation in Vietnam was completely false, that she was misled, that it was for money and for power and to get military bases over there, and it wasn't for the people, it wasn't for democracy, it wasn't to set all the things that she had been told, all the things that she'd seen on television, and different things like that. And she originally was like, oh, I thought it was this, and they had to educate her and say that no, that's not what it is at all. They had to tell her that the U.S. was trying to get money, and they were in there for all the wrong reasons, and that it was not something that should be supported, or it was not, they did not have good intentions. And so just that encounter and the way that she talked about afterwards, going through and reading through all of the newspapers and reading about all of what was happening and what all they were doing and what all was going on over there, she said she got to the point where she had to basically like close herself off from media because it was so overwhelming, the disgust that she had about the situation, the realization that she had about the truth of why we were even engaged in this war, disgusted her so much that she basically had to take a break from gathering this information, from seeing this information, from taking this all in. And the idea, though, that she was presented with new information, or she was educated on facts, on the reality of a situation, and was able to take that into consideration about how she felt about the situation, really resonated with me, because I think a lot of us have had this journey in the last, I'll say, year, but it's probably been longer. It may be shorter for some other people, but if you've been participating in protest, or if you've been engaged in activism since the George Floyd protests. If you've been engaged since last May, then you're probably in the same boat, where you're learning a lot of new things that you didn't know before. You're learning about a lot of policies and really how far up the chain the corruption goes, and how it doesn't just start with the police, but it's an entire system that was created and upheld to be oppressive, racially, financially, and all of that. So the idea that being presented with new information, and to take that education and change your mindset and your outlook about what it is, what you're fighting for, and what you believe, I think that can we can all relate to that, because we've all been educating ourselves. We've all been looking into what policies and what laws and what ideologies were created, and why they're still in place today, and seeing that it's not just a few people, it's not just a couple of people that are racist, but we've created a society and instilled ideas and systems that were created during slavery and are still around, even if slavery isn't necessarily en masse, besides incarcerated people, but en masse in the general public, it's not upheld still.
What I read was chapters 6 through 9, and I think chapter 6 she was talking about, she was very young. I think she was 13. She was 13 years old, and she had gotten some type of argument with her mother rather. She got in some type of argument with her mother, which caused her to run away. And from there, I was thinking about that, just being a 13-year-old in New York, running away, she talks about how she was walking around New York trying to find a job with her suitcase, and no one wanted to hire her. But I was really, and that's in the same chapter where it came up, the sexual assault. And I was really, throughout this whole time, I've been kind of learning and kind of understanding, and just the different struggles that women go through. She talked about she was 13 years old, but she was working in the bar. She was working in bars with it. She had told everybody she was 18, and for some type of reason, everybody believed her. But she also said that when people of African descent would come into the bar, they would pull her to the side and say, what'd you do? Did you run away? And they had some type of caring about her that where they seemingly they knew she wasn't 18. They knew they looked out for this girl. They looked out for so it was really just her. Just that chapter of her just being so young and going through these things. It was just I don't even know really what I'm trying to say right now. It's just really just opening and opening and heartbreaking. Just trying to understand and being able to empathize with her. And it was a moment I had to stop reading because I had to, after the story she had, where she had, where a group of boys attempted to rape her. It was a moment where I just had to stop reading and just take a breath. Where I felt like if I kept going, and I was gonna start tearing up or something like that. It was really just a heartbreaking chapter. But she also talked about, I think even the next chapter, her experience in jail. And through this time, through this 10 months or so, 10, 11 months or so, I've been arrested in jail since and I've learned that my experiences were horrible, which they are in a way, but the things that she went through in her life were, it's infuriating. It was infuriating. She talked a little bit about how the doctors in the jail, she had just found out she had thought she was pregnant. She felt like she knew she was pregnant, but she didn't actually know. It was just a body feeling. She was getting sick in the mornings and things like that. She had all the symptoms of being pregnant. So, but she was also scared to tell. She was in jail at this time. She was also scared to go to the doctor in jail. She was scared to go to the doctor in jail because she knew if she told the doctor in jail is going to tell everybody. It's going to be all over the newspaper. It's going to be all over the television. It's going to be a big story that she got pregnant in jail. So she was real nervous, and she would go to the doctor and she would list off the symptoms, which would be the symptoms of pregnancy. And he would say, "Oh, it's some type of bowel disorder, or maybe you're constipated, or something like that." And this continued, I think, for 3 visits, until he had her, let's take a urine sample. So he took the urine sample, and again, he kept on saying that it was some type of intestine disorder, or some type of thing like that. And then this happened again. She had same type of thing. They got another sample from her, and she went back to the doctor. Oh, it was a intestine disorder. You got it. But at the same time, she was of the mindset of, oh, I'm pregnant. I don't know what this feeling is like, but she's a woman. I would assume, there's some sort of feeling. But so then that story, when she found out for sure that she was pregnant, it was from the judge. The doctor had given a report to the judge, and same thing that she was trying to avoid. It was a story in all the newspapers. It was a story, and they were trying to allege that the father of the child was a prison guard or something like that. And it was really just her plight in jail after experiences that I have gone through in jail was really just it was disgusting. It was disgusting how these people acted and treated her inhumanely. I can't think of more words other than cruel and unusual punishment. That's exactly what it was. If you were, from now on, when I think of cruel and unusual punishment, that's what I'm going to think of. What I know Assata, Shakur had came up when we were watching the trial of Chicago 7. We were talking a little bit about what happened to Bobby Seale, and what's different from Bobby Seale is they didn't take Assata into another room. Do either of you want to talk a little bit about that? And I don't know if either of you two have any more details on it. I don't know.
What happened with on hers?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't read hers.
You didn't read hers?
No. It must have been maybe Terry. You didn't read it?
You
Must have been Terry who read it.
Must have been Terry.
or maybe a rabbit, terrier rabbit, or
Yeah.
terrier rabbit.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Okay. That's all right. We'll go. You, both of you, same type of thing. You've been arrested. You've been in jail. Do you wanna? How was there? No, I don't want to go there. What type of things were you able to relate some of the things that she went through back to your own life and life experiences that you have went through?
Wait, this might be good.
Okay.
Good. Oh, hey, do we got the cord to charge it?
I don't know.
Damn. I was thinking about that too. Okay, well, the mic's worked before. Okay, so we gotta move it around. That lady will have to get closer. Okay. Where were we? Okay, well, I did not read about her experiences in jail. I've heard other people talk about what they read about her experiences in jail. I think that in general, different groups of people will have vastly different iterations of cruel and unusual punishment in jail, and I think that it's sort of similar to the outside. So many things in America, so many systems in America are set up very similar to how the outside system of America is set up, in the sense of I'm sure that in prison and in jail, what cruel and unusual punishment looks like for a straight white man, is bad, but I'm sure that it goes down layers, and then it comes to straight black men, and then even to young black boys who probably have it worse than a black man, a grown adult would have it, and then to LGBTQ plus folks who their experiences, what their experience in jail is like, and the experience that women will have in jail and in prison, and I can't imagine what the circumstances is like, having to have a menstrual cycle in prison, or in jail, or what the circumstances is like given, you get new boxers. Both times I spent the night in jail, you got to strip and get naked and put new clothes on. I don't know, as a man, I know that a man being naked is looked at in society very differently than a woman being naked. And a man, taking his clothes off with, another man watching is, to me, society has deemed that very different than a woman having to take her clothes off, with whether it's a woman watching or whoever's watching, it's been more taboo, so to have that experience, I'm sure, is different. The same thing, most of the times we've been arrested, I've been arrested, I think a few times there's been a woman there, but for the most part, it's been men involved in each one of the things, and as a man, there is no type of, I don't get any type of traumatic remembrances of negative experiences I've had with other men before when, I get arrested. But I've heard other women talking about just having that many men around them and having that little bit amount of control in a situation with men triggers traumas that they've had before. So even though for me, my experience was, and I'm sure if I was to get arrested again, was negative and would be negative. I understand, just like in the outside world, that it's levels to that negativity, and some of those levels, just me being a man, I'll never have to worry about. Just me being straight, I'll never have to worry about or think about. And so, for me, when I hear about other people who go through these things, that or somebody with a deeper mental health issues, who get stuck inside of a jail. People talk about being claustrophobic and how they were nervous when they get put in the back of the paddy wagon for being claustrophobic. I'm not claustrophobic, so when I get put in the back of the paddy wagon in a small space, it don't really do anything to me. But I can't imagine being claustrophobic and then being stuck in that space for that much amount of time. So I empathize with it heavily, and I try to understand it, as much as I can. It's only limited to certain things to understand. Same thing as being pregnant in jail. I can't imagine what it would be like, to be in jail and to be pregnant and then to have to give birth. If tomorrow I was to go to jail for a year and I was to be in the process of having a child, I wouldn't have to carry the burden of having a child. I would be mentally it would take a toll on me being separated and psychologically, but physically I wouldn't have to deal with that, as opposed to who knows how many women are inside of Winnebago County Jail right now, pregnant, or in the beginnings of being pregnant, or in Illinois state prisons that are pregnant and aren't getting the right treatment, and what type of effects that will have on a child, or what type of effects just, when his mother of my son was pregnant, I wanted her to have the least amount of stress as possible. I look back and I think about times where we may have argued or disagreed, and I hate that I, might have added an extra burden of emotional toll on her. So I can't imagine the emotional toll it takes on a woman to be pregnant inside of a jail, to know she'll have to give birth to a baby inside of a jail, to give birth to her, her child, and for the child to be taken away from her, to know that she can't hold on to the child. One of the strongest memories of my life, one of the best moments of my life was, when they put my son onto, his mother's arms, and, her holding him, and for the next 3, 4, the next however long they were inseparable, for months, years, you couldn't separate them. I remember the first time that we both went to work and we left him with somebody, and, we was both, messed up about it. So I think all of those things are things that I try my best to empathize with, and I also one of the things that I've tried to do these last 10 months is know when I won't be able to understand something fully, know when I won't be able to know what walking in those shoes are like fully, and be okay with that, and be okay with listening to what somebody else says that experience is like.
So I agree. I don't think that, any of us sitting here, or anybody that's been involved in local protesting, or, really anybody can 100% feel and relate to what Assata went through. She's got her own personal story. She's got, what happened in her life is unique to her. I feel like I've been in some similar situations, but never to the magnitude that she was faced with. Never all culminated together. I remember when I was first arrested, I was charged with a felony, and because of COVID, I spent the entire weekend in segregation, in a cell by myself. From the time that I was brought in, I was processed through the first part of the jail. You get booked into the jail, but from that point on, before we were even booked, actually, we were all taken up to segregation holding cells and then brought back down hours later and booked. So from that point, we were first brought in, we were searched, we didn't even have our clothes changed, but we were taken up to holding cells and put in there for 6, some of us between 6 to 10 hours. So somewhere between 6 and 10 hours we spent. Was brought downstairs to where they actually do the booking, and was placed in another holding cell where I was finally able to get a call and actually let people know that I was in jail. And mind you, this is 10 hours after the arrest. So people are trying to get a hold of me, or people, wondering where I'm at. I have no way of telling them, because at this point I hadn't even got a phone call. From there, I was moved into, I don't know if it was a medical unit or what, but it was essentially segregation. I spent the entire weekend in segregation, wasn't really told much, was basically sent off by all of the guards, was refused to have any type of entertainment, whether that be books or puzzles or some of the things that they give other incarcerated people. I was refused that because I was told I was a COVID risk. Because of COVID, I was sat in a cell with nothing, with no one, by myself, after just having to go through the traumatizing situation of not only being arrested, but prior to my arrest, and I guess you could say during my arrest, having been assaulted. And so, all of that happened, and it was extremely mentally draining. It was extremely mentally exhausting. At the time, I was supposed to be on medication for an illness that I have. I was not on medication for the entire weekend that I was there, and it caused me a lot of pain, a lot of physical pain. So along with me suffering the mental anguish of being in segregation and not having anything to occupy my mind or time besides replaying my traumatizing event over and over in my head, I was also going through a lot of physical pain. And on top of that, the conditions, if you know the conditions in the jail, they're not the greatest. Where I was at, it was extremely hot. Some other people have talked about where they were at, it was freezing cold, the complete opposite. But where I was at, it was extremely hot, like extremely hot, sweating. I came in with the undergarments that I came in with, and I left with the undergarments that I came with. I didn't get no change of clothes. I didn't get no nothing. I got nothing. I came in what I came with. They gave me a uniform, or the pants and the shirt. I wore that the entire weekend, and then on Monday went to court, and then was released Monday night. So that was a portion of what I went through, but I also understand that Assata wasn't just in segregation for a weekend, and it wasn't just the one time. There were multiple times and multiple days that she spent in segregation, and it being that extensive for her, I can only imagine what it must have been like mentally and physically for her, because a lot of the time that she spent in segregation was postpartum. So after she gave birth, she spent time in segregation, and what it was actually for was that she was denying them to do a vaginal exam. So she got discharged out of the hospital, even regardless of whether she should have been discharged or not, which we also have experience locally. The reason the occupation began, Tyrus Jones, he was in a coma after being shot in the back by police, and as soon as he opened his eyes, they came and got him. They took him to the jail. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't even walk. He had just woken up out of a 2.5-week coma, and they brought him straight to the jail. So I think his experience, he could probably say a little bit more. I understand what that's like to have a serious medical situation and be locked in a jail, but I can't relate in that aspect. But I know that her time in the hospital as well, she wasn't receiving proper treatment, and it got to the point where they had given her an exam, and after the exam was finished, she began bleeding, and she told them that she was just going to deliver the baby on her own. She was in labor. She was having contractions at that point. She was not in active labor, but her water had not broke, but she was having contractions, and she just told them, I'm going to have to deliver this baby by myself because of basically the inadequate care. And so I feel like I had an experience as well where I had a health scare and ended up in the hospital, but when I initially went there, they tried to turn me away. And I was adamant, I think I have this issue, and they said, okay, we'll check for this issue. they ran tests, and lo and behold, you know, that's exactly what was wrong with me. And they're, oh, it's so great that you came in. You know, it could have gotten worse. It could have been fatal. It could have, you know, and it just baffled me, because I thought you weren't willing to give me the care to begin with, and now all of a sudden you're really adamant about trying to make sure that you take care of this issue, after finding out that I was telling the truth, or that, you know, I wasn't making it up, or that, you know, I knew what I was talking about. And so I think that some of that may be incompetency, but we can't overlook the fact that, especially with childbirth in this country, there's a lot of inadequate care when it comes to Black women. There's a lot of inadequate care. There's a lot of deaths that can be prevented. There's a lot of serious illness that can be prevented, but it is because of racist stereotypes and racist ideals, unfounded ideas, that they treat Black women in such ways as we're treated. And so I think that having a situation where I feel like I wasn't cared for in the way that I should have been cared for, and can't help like not being able to help but feel that it was because I was a person of color, or because I was a Black woman in a hospital where my entire 4-day stay, I did not see one Black person, one Black doctor, one Black nurse, one Black CNA, one Black janitor. Not one Black person was in that entire hospital. Not one person of color was in that entire hospital. And I couldn't help but feel like I was receiving the care that I was receiving because I looked different. At the time, I had my hair braided, and I had tribal braids. I felt like I was, you know, I just felt like almost like they were not trained to treat Black people. Like they were just, I don't know how to explain it, but I felt like the care that I was receiving, I felt like I received it for a very specific reason. I felt like had there been another person of color there, or a Black woman or something, that I would have felt more comfortable with them. I would have felt like they understood and was able to say, okay, we can, get some stuff going and to see how we can figure out how to help you, as opposed to a white male doctor coming in and saying, well, I don't think that anything's wrong, but we'll check just to make sure, and then finding out that something's wrong. So I can see where she was probably sitting there like, I don't want your help. She was asking for a specific doctor, her specific doctor. I can see how she was like, I don't want the help that you're trying to give me, because you're not qualified to give me the care that I require, and you're not trying to preserve me. Basically, you're just trying to get a job done. When in the medical field, I feel like you should be trying to preserve life, to enhance life. And a lot of doctors, it seems like they're just trying to get you on your way, or just get the job done, do it by the book. When
Oh.
he on escape mode.
Damn, he busted shit. I ain't never seen this girl bust they shit like that. He hurt too. He act like he ain't hurt. You hurt. That hurt. You know that hurt.
Like you fell?
Yeah, he tried to look.
Somebody you fell, you just gotta walk that off.
Yeah, he trying to get that little feeling off a little bit. He know that shit was loud. He too big to make a noise that loud.
I think I heard it through the headphones.
Yeah. He dazed. Trying to figure out where he at. You good, man?
You good, some donut that fell over here. Oh, damn.
He good now. He just had to shake it off.
Okay, he good.
Yeah, he good now.
That was a good broad jump. Yeah, that was a good little broad jump.
Yeah.
Doing a little spider crawl.
I don't know that. didn't know they had that in them.
Oh, he's still hurt. It's the slowest I've ever seen a squirrel move at once.
Oh wow.
All right.
Okay.
It's never a dull moment.
Never.
But I feel like a culmination of the treatment that she received, just even say like throughout her pregnancy, from the time that, you know, in the chapters that you read where she realized that she was pregnant, to when she gave birth, and even after she delivered the baby, them refusing to let her see the baby until the next day, and then discharging her before she was medically cared for entirely, knowing that, or I don't know what they knew at this time, but knowing now that Black women are more likely to hemorrhage or to have infections or to have some sort of issue, problem arising from deliveries, and then having her in the jail and segregation after just having a child, and then having her child ripped away from her. I think that nobody can quite understand that experience, but we can kind of take a look at different points throughout our lives to things that we may have experienced similar, and understand that for somebody going through all of this all at one time in such a short period of time, you know, that it's horrible. It's crazy to think about how strong, how resilient you have to be to endure that day after day, week after week, month after month, and how her perseverance and how her personal feelings towards wanting better, not just for herself, but for her brothers and sisters, for her child, for her, you know, family, for her friends, wanting better for everybody, kept her going. And then the support as well. She did have support. She did have people that were protesting for her outside the hospital, and people that in turn saw what she was doing and reciprocated that energy and kept her going.
While you were talking just about this racist stereotypes put on to Black women and Black people, it reminded me of a quote that came out earlier early in the summer, maybe about the fall, about from Mike Dalkey about I'm not sure what the exact context was, but he was talking about Black women. I think somebody had asked him about arrests that had been made
at City Market
during City Market, arrests of Black women and Black individuals during City Market, and the brutal nature of them. And this was his quote from Officer Mike Dalkey. I think he is an assistant deputy chief.
Is he? Oh yeah, because you said every assistant deputy chief
don't
got a district.
Yeah, he's not a commander of a district, but he is an assistant deputy chief. These women are stronger than they look and have a surprisingly high pain tolerance. And that was his reasoning for the brutal nature in which some of these Black women were arrested during the City Market. So do you have anything to add just about the healthcare or lack thereof of Black people or Black individuals?
Let's see. I'm not well versed enough in all of the information about the healthcare disparities, but I do know that is a very real thing. I don't know if it's almost nothing the society that we live in which you can't turn, and if you look hard enough, not see the disparities based on race and gender and class in our institutions. It's a book called Medical Apartheid that someone recommended that we read in all of this. I'm not sure if we will be able to fit that in because of what the themes are for every week. But I think that sort of goes to the fact that we probably could do multiple months of something like this. We probably could do multiple years of something like this, where you break down all the discrepancies in certain fields of this country. And so I have, I know that even just, we're talking about specifically the disparity for Black women in healthcare, but we can pull that out to the same thing. We try to have intersectionality. We had somebody down here recently telling us about how a family member of somebody who I believe they were saying was an undocumented immigrant, was having difficulties in the healthcare system because the people there just didn't care about what happened to them. I can speak similarly to times when I was a kid or when I was younger and I was on my mom's healthcare plan, and my mom's always been very conscious of certain things, and so she always made sure that she had good health insurance, and I was on her health insurance as much as possible. So I've seen the difference between going into a hospital with good health insurance, under my mom's health insurance as a child, as a kid, and having asthma and pneumonia and bronchitis regularly in the treatment, and then going to a hospital as an adult and not having health insurance, and maybe having Medicaid, or maybe being in a position in which I, irresponsibly on my part, don't have any kind of coverage. And I've seen how quickly they want to get you in and out. I've had kidney stones before and went to a hospital multiple times and been told, I went once and they say that it's nothing there, and I tell them that it's probably kidney stones, it's nothing there. I go home, I'm still in pain. I go back to the hospital later. Maybe it's a different doctor this time or a different time of the day, and they go the extra mile, and maybe they do a CAT scan or an X-ray or something like that, and then it's the kidney stones is there, and then they give you a prescription for low tolerance pain medicine. I went to the hospital before and I had a prescription because of how many times I've had kidney stones. This is why I've had these different experiences, but I went before and not been given any pain medicine, and I'm sure that's based off the fact that they thought I was coming looking for pain medicine and that I didn't really have any issues. But something that is very true that I've experienced and I've seen with other people who have had kidney stones is you have layover physical pain. Sometimes you have physical pain from it that doesn't mean that maybe it's not a kidney stone there. I've been told before, like, the kidney stone's too high, it's nothing we can do about it now, so there's been all these different disparities that I've seen just from not having health insurance and having health insurance, from being Black. Even just in Rockford, certain hospitals people don't want to go to. That's the thing here, that certain hospitals aren't good. Even add on to that, when shootings happen in the city, this is something that I don't think gets spoke a lot about. But when shootings happen in the city, sometimes somebody will get shot and they'll drive them past 2 hospitals before they, to get them to a different hospital. And in the midst of that happening, the person has died in that process. Or they'll wait to let the ambulance get through before, they'll wait to secure the area and prolong the ambulance getting through. And by the time the ambulance gets there, the person is dead. And to me, those are all forms of medical racism, and medical discrimination. So I think we could go a whole nother, what happened? Oh shit!
But it's still going.
Wait, it says it's still going. Wait, let me see.
If you're on the live and you can still see us, we're still live. Let us know.
Put a 1 in the comments.
Drop a 1 in the comments. We're still going.
Denez, where you at? I thought Denez was coming. He coming tomorrow.
Coming tomorrow?
Is he coming? I don't know. Is he coming? He's supposed to come tomorrow today.
He was here yesterday, and he said I'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, I got so many tabs open.
Look like it's still going.
Yeah. Let me see.
I got it still going. I just got me looking at the phone right a second ago. Excellent book. Oh, that's an old picture. That's an old comment. Oh, maybe it's not going still.
Oh, we got the Nez where you at comment going.
Yeah. Yeah, we still going.
Yeah, all right.
Terry, that's a you thing.
That's on you.
So yeah, the medical that's a whole nother bag, but it's good. But before I pass it back to you, and let me ask a question to both of you too, since both of you have read more of that book from that book than I have. First, let me state that I think it's good that in the midst of this book that it is opening up new points of dialogue that maybe we have not got to open up in the past 3 books. That wasn't something, even though they did speak about jail and incarceration and New Jim Crow and a little bit in the end of policing, not very much in They Can't Kill Us All. They never spoke about, the infirmaries or the conditions of health in the jails and things like that. And she did say that there is multiple other outlets that she wasn't able to speak on. So I think that is good that, another layer has been added. I think that each book has added more layers to some of the things that we've been out here talking about. But do you have, from reading the things that you guys have read, that you all have read, do you see, is it any things that you connect back to the New Jim Crow or the end of policing or They Can't Kill Us All? Do you see any types of forms of intersectionality, or when you were reading a certain passage in the book, did it make you think of anything from the other books? Since this one is a little bit different. Those other ones were sort of like, the first 2 were more sort of like textbooks in a way. Then They Can't Kill Us All was sort of more like a big newspaper, news article, journalism type piece, and this is sort of like an autobiography. So, do you see any interconnections? Anybody?
I just like the order in which we read them, from almost having little to no in-depth personal stories in the New Jim Crows, to having a little bit more in the end of policing, to They Can't Kill Us All, to be a journalist, going around telling different stories of different things, and to actually have a person that is an excellent writer, an excellent, terrific writer, as Assata Shakur. It was, I really like just the way in which we read them. It felt like just in that they built off each other, and we were able to. The way we read them was the right way. The way we read them was the good way. So I felt like if they were out of place, and from the way in which we read them, it was maybe the story of maybe the story in the end of policing wouldn't be as impactful as it was to me as a person, as the time going around. But as far as what I can draw back to any of the other books, it's still at a place with me where I don't feel like it's just another one of those things, and I've had this feeling with the other books as well, but this one is a little bit more intensified, where I feel the need and calling to go back and read more, to find out what else she has written, or what else books are there out there. So really, it's just been more, instead of quenching my thirst for knowledge, or quenching my thirst, it just reinvigorated that, and made me more now. I think that's what. Yeah, I would just say that it's just been reinvigorating my, or pointing out the purpose, or pointing out the need of more knowledge and more understanding and more reading, which I'm really excited for the rest of the month. Anything you want to add? Okay.
Nothing. Yeah, let me see. I can see the books. Oh man, I ain't read it. I can see the end of police book too. It's probably not. What did they say on the internet? That's the thing they say about like
Dangerous thing.
No, that's true. That is a dangerous thing. The Matrix is glitching, or it's a glitch in the Matrix. Yeah. It might not be real. It might be just a glitch. That's probably what happened with the squirrel. Yeah, it's a glitch in the simulation. Yeah, we caught in a glitch right now. That's not a real ambulance. Squirrels don't fall from that. Our squirrel can't do that jump. Come on, man.
You're drunk.
Oh no, we can't talk about people being drunk.
It was a squirrel. Talk about animals being drunk.
They gonna start.
Fermented fruits.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, they get
So they be drunk? Oh, so the squirrel might have been drunk.
I don't know how many
Squirreling while drunk. Squirreling under the influence.
Maybe you left some grapes out here one.
Oh, I did. I let the grapes on.
Well, as you were talking, I started to think about because I am trying to go the extra mile to make connections. So as you were talking, it made me think about chapter 10 in here. The police have always been political. The roots of political policing lie deep in the desire of kings and queens to maintain power in the face of the shifting allegiances and interests of nobles of foreign powers. Today, states portray their police forces as value-neutral protectors of public safety, but in reality, states continue to monitor and disrupt all kinds of political activity through surveillance, infiltration, criminal entrapment, and repressing protests. The continued existence of these practices poses a major threat to any effort to change the basic role of police and, more broadly, to achieve the goals of racial and economic justice. Yeah. What's up? I don't got no squares. No, y'all don't smoke squares. Good luck. Good luck finding one, bro. Damn, I didn't know what my response to be. Okay. So, I do think that the last chapter of The End of Policing sort of gives you, for someone who maybe they read Assata's biography and think that this is an exception, what happened to her, or this is an exception, some of the tactics that were taken. I think that chapter in The End of Policing lets you know that it is not an exception, that what she went through was specific because of who she is, and individuals go through specific things, but Angela Davis, because of her beliefs, was persecuted and prosecuted. Fred Hampton, which is a very popular name right now because of the film that just came out, was prosecuted and persecuted for these same things. Shuby Newton and Bobby Seale went through these same things. And so I think that one of the things that, we can also, we have went through similar things based off of our political beliefs, based off of the fact that we don't have a problem with speaking those beliefs. And so I think that that's one connection from The End of Policing into here. I think that from the new Jim Crow, I think that it was a few pieces in there in which they spoke about the things that gave rise to mass incarceration and the things that gave rise to the prison industrial complex. And to me, and one of the things that they speak on is the generation of black people that Assata is from, being one of the things that those police were trying to address, and being one of those things that the police were upping prison systems for. People like Assata Shakur were the people that Richard Nixon used to vilify black people, used to vilify the black power movement, used to vilify the black liberation movement. And the process of using those people to vilify those movements, they increased federal budgets and increased the policing budgets. And this was around the time when they stopped with the war on poverty and started with the war on drugs, and they started criminalizing any black people who attempted to build power within the black community and who spoke about changing the structure of this society. And so I think that that's a connection to the new Jim Crow, and I think that the last connection to the new Jim Crow comes in the form in which Assata speaks about how we have to get rid of this system in order to create a new system. And that's one of the things that Michelle Alexander was very specific about in the new Jim Crow, how if we weren't careful enough about and paying enough attention to actually dismantling this system the right way and not just trying to reform this system, that we would end up in a new version of this same system. And so They Can't Kill Us All is a little bit, she said she got shot with her hands up. Part of the, the main story in there is, hands up, don't shoot. So I think that there are connections to each of these things, and I think that part of what happens as we continue to read and we continue to get more educated, at least for me, this is one of the things that has happened is, we was talking about The Matrix, but in the movie The Matrix, it's always, when I got older and I went back and I watched it, it's a lot of subliminal messages in it. And one of the things was the guy that would be on the computer, you know, they would just see like the numbers and the lines, you know, they wouldn't really see the people and the, you know, the bodies of the matrix. They just see the numbers of the matrix. But they can cross-reference and translate it, you know, even though they see the numbers, even though it's numbers visually, they see the people there. And so it's got it to a place where I can read the end of policing and I can see all the side things that connect to this, or I can read a side and see all the side things that connect to this, or read They Can't Kill Us All and see the side things that connect to it. And as I speak to more people who sort of have these more abstract mindsets, you know, where they can same thing, they can connect things. You know, talking to Terry, you know, Terry will connect something from all the way over here to here, and he can communicate to you, you know, why he connects it there. You know, and the more I, you know, read and get educated, the easier it is for me to make those same kind of connections. Where before, that felt like some type of conspiracy theorist stretch. Whereas now, you know, I see how all of these things sort of, you know, connect and feed off of each other.
You need to go back and watch everything.
Yeah, we might have to. Yeah, at the end, we have to go back in. New mindset. Yeah. And who? Then one more thing. Do you remember what year is all this stuff taking place with Assata?
It was a
Late
span.
60s.
It was banned. I know this book was published in 1987. And I think some of the patches that I read, she had mentioned 73, I think.
73, so that's
Yeah,
next.
74 was when she had the baby.
Yeah.
74, so this
It
is
was around that 73 time when she was in jail, and then I don't know what.
But she does go back and talk about, you know, right after she graduated from. She goes back and she talks about when she graduated high school, which I believe was after the typical person would graduate, so around 17, 18. Somebody would normally graduate. I believe she would have been a little bit older because she had gotten to the working force and then went back and was working and then going to night school to be able to get her diploma. So I think she had gotten her degree or diploma a short period of time after, maybe when she was 20 or early 20s. But yeah, she talked about that. She talked about working. She talked about the Vietnam War and before they really started to be against it, which I believe the mid to late 70s was when the Democratic or Republican National Convention.
68 was the convention.
Right.
68 the convention.
So she's having these conversations
Before
with
the
people
convention.
before the convention,
So then,
before
yeah,
the riots, before all the backlash regarding the war. So she's talking about sometime mid-60s. But she's also talking about her childhood. So, you know, it's an autobiography, so it's a span across her entire life. But the thing about hers was it was kind of out of order. So if you were following along, it would talk about her childhood, and then her while being in the jail, finding out she's pregnant, and then it would talk about maybe some teen years, and then it would go and talk about when she gave birth, and then it would talk about, you know, when she was going to school and trying to graduate and working jobs and different things like that. So it was kind of like a back and forth throughout her life, and just kind of met somewhere in the middle. And but it was probably I would say somewhere two decades, 3 decades, maybe. It seemed like the story was mostly about the front end of her life as opposed to her later years. So it seemed like, you know, her childhood and her early 20s, maybe mid 20s. So
she was with I remember Terry talking about she signed up with the Black Panthers. She signed up for I remember Terry talking about a portion in there where she was with the Black Panthers and tried to join the Black Panthers or join the Black Panthers for a little bit, or
she's the one that got.
Yeah, they like kicked her out for a day, and then she came back, and
they kicked her out the first day, I think.
It was like the first day, and then she brought her back the next day and told her what to do differently or whatever. And so, you know, I think that's a very specific time frame of people. It's a very specific mindset, in my opinion, of the black. To me, that's sort of like the last generation of the black revolutionaries, where they were willing to completely omit from this society if that was what was necessary. I know that we watched some of the Black Panther documentary that, you know, we gotta, you know, it'd be great to probably go back and watch again with more information and more understanding, but they talked about having like Panther pads, and all of them living together because of the danger in which, you know, living with different families may bring, what may have brought. That's similar to, you know, a lot of these people that we speak of, a lot of them left the country. You know, a lot of them went to live in different places. You know, they just omitted from American society. And I think that a lot of that had to do with the sharp turn that America started to take around the time that they took their stances. You know, I think that if, you know, this is a lot of big ifs, but if Bobby Kennedy maybe was a president instead of Richard Nixon, or that maybe it's not such a hard turn to the connotations and things like that American society and values went to. But one of the things, in my opinion, that happens with presidential elections is if one president gets elected doing a certain thing, the next person who runs with similar values and similar concepts. You know, I think that's what's dangerous about the 4 years that Trump had, is that 4 years of Trump may ingratiate someone else to try to do what Trump did to get elected. You know, I mean, essentially what Trump did is, you know, they talk about Richard Nixon was the first person to use dog whistles and dog whistle words, and him being elected, it led to, you know, it wasn't directly the next presidential election, but it led to Reagan being able to be elected. And they talk about how Reagan perfected some of the things that Nixon did, and then, you know, Reagan being elected led to, you know, Bush being elected. The first Bush or whatever, you know, the first Bush, you know, and then all of those things led to, by the time you get to this Democratic president, you know, Jimmy Carter was mixed in there, but by the time you get to Bill Clinton is trying to appease the Republican crowd and appease the right crowd, and to show that he's, you know, tough on crime, and, you know, that he's not soft on crime, and, you know, we get to a place where
whenever you say that, I meant to bring it up.
Yeah.
Whenever you say that, it bring up the politicians feeling the need to be tough on crime. I think of, and you were the first person to bring this to my attention, Bill Clinton going to an execution.
Yeah.
That's all I had there. That's all I had.
Yeah, that was crazy. But you know, I think that in reading this biography, Assata's autobiography, which is very similar to sort of what happened to a lot of the people from the Black liberation movement, Black Power movement at that time, was that you know, they criminalized them, and then they made sure to tell people that they're going to be tough on criminals and they're going to be tough on crime, and so that, you know, led to a lot of the things that, you know, she went through, you know, because of the society and the culture of, you know, what they felt the thing to do was, you know. And, you know, I think a lot of that also went to the fact that these were a different generation of black people. Assata's a different generation of black women than was a little bit before. You know, it was getting closer and closer to that point, but and I think that to this day, you know, the militancy is something that is feared when if it's a black person. You know, perseverance and dedication and unwaveringness when it's a black person and they're doing it for things that are for black liberation. You know, that is something that scares people. You know, and so I think that is, you know, those are all the things that, you know, I think of, that makes me think of some of the other connotations of some of these other books.
This book was written in '87. I think that's, let's see, what's the math on that? 34 years ago, I think, 34 years ago. So I just did a quick little Google search because I was wondering about this. Assata Shakur is still on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. There's still I believe it was a $1 million bounty reward. I don't want to say bounty. $1 million reward out for returning her or having some type of thing. But she was able to be granted asylum and political. I forget what exactly is the asylum. I think it's political asylum in Cuba. So, but what do you think about the continued persecution of Assata Shakur, where to this day in 2021 a lot of things happen? closer to 40 years ago, where she's still considered. I just looked on the page. They say she should be considered armed and dangerous. There's still, to this day, however many years ago, however many decades from now, how many decades ago, I just looked this up as well. She's 73 years old, still FBI's most wanted terrorist list, still considered armed and dangerous, just for being a black revolutionary. So what do you think? Are you glad that we have knowledge about impending persecution of Assata Shakur?
I think not only with her story, but if you look, or if you paid attention, listen along to when we read The End of Policing. There were parts in there where it talked about these agencies and these units and task force that were created to infiltrate or to investigate what they deemed as radical political groups. And these, weren't even groups that were entirely radical. These were maybe hippies who wanted, less pollution and peace and love, or somebody.
They got somebody in FEMA real dirty. Or PETA. They got somebody in PETA real dirty.
Not PETA. PETA kind of.
Yeah, they set them up though. They get them to blow something up or something, to try to blow something up or something.
Yeah. So there were some in there. It talked about some people with mental disabilities, and these agents would go in and basically convince them to do these things. And at least two of them it mentioned they were neurologically diverse.
Yeah, it was like a Middle
Eastern. And so
they
convinced him to do this. And the one claimed that he had to go ask his mom for permission. He never said that he was going to go do it. And then never done but eventually he was arrested and charged and convicted of something revolving around domestic terrorism, and he never had the plans, he never had the means, he never had motive, he never had anything, but they had basically entrapped him and other people into the idea of committing these crimes, when had that person not intervened in their life, had that person not put that idea in there, had that person not got it in their head to even think about the possibility of doing something like this, it would have never even crossed their mind. And so I think that, along with the fact that all of these groups, they created these lists of most wanted people, of who they deemed to be domestic terrorists, individual people that were part of organizations, or the organizations that they deemed to be domestic terrorist organizations.
No, so I gotta go this way, sir. I'll show you my gallery. My radio's about to be open, my drawers. It wants to do everything. Look at my knee. What's my knee?
Show me over here. I got you. You need water bottle?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went and took pictures.
All right.
For the water bottle a little bit.
But so I think with them demeaning these people to just criminals, instead of people who are activists, people who want better from the government, people who want better from communities, people who want better from police. They quote unquote investigated these people, found no evidence or proof that they were engaged in any kind of terrorism or any criminal activity of any kind, yet deemed them to be terrorists. So that, you know, looking at Assata Shakur and seeing that, you know, these units from the end of policing that were created to investigate these groups, investigate these people, finding no evidence of criminal activity, and oftentimes when they would find radical right-wing groups to be suspicious or engaging or planning any kind of criminal activity, they would overlook it and not intervene. And many times they would arrest and incarcerate, convict, torture, brutalize, victimize people who were just advocating for better, people who they claimed had radical political ideologies, and they criminalized them. And you know, more times than not, and the way the book made it seem, almost every single time, if not every single time, they were never even engaged in any criminal activity. So I think with her persecution and even her current criminalization, I think it all goes to this idea that the government is trying to suppress and oppress anybody who has a different ideology, anyone who wants things to be different than what's normal, and anybody who has gained a following in their ideology, anybody who can articulate and point out the flaws and get people on board with this idea that yes, we do need change. I think that they're targeted, and unfortunately she was one of those people that was able to move in such a way to where people would understand that, okay, I get what you're saying, this is an issue, and yes, now we do need change. And you know, the government having things the way that they want them, or wanting to keep the way that they want them, or only wanting things to go the way that they want things to go, I think that they made it a point to basically snuff out that light and snuff out her ability to be able to continue her activism and continue the change that she was trying to bring about. I think that was very intentional on their part. After reading The End of Policing, it doesn't surprise me that they would still identify her in this way, as if she's a terrorist and that she's armed and dangerous, when, you know, she's, you said 73 years old, she's a, you know, older woman, she's just living out her life, the rest of her days. I'm sure she's retired from working whatever she was doing by now, and it's just kind of, it sounds morbid, but coasting to the end at this point. She can't really, it's not like she can go see the world if she wants to.
I think I just saw she was in Britain.
Oh, what? You can do that? You can, like, go places? My idea is, like, she's got political asylum in Cuba, so it's like she just stays in Cuba.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
That didn't work out how it was.
It never does.
I get too crazy for that. I'll go around the block on the edges. Hello.
Alright. I thought I just saw that. I could be wrong.
He's wearing his pants like he. No, never mind. That's what I'm just saying, you talk about black people. So wear your pants like you.
I don't think he has a real qualm. I think he just has bursts of unbearable emotion, and it triggers him to say things. that you wouldn't
Burst of
normally.
unbearable emotion.
Oh no, I was
Maybe
wrong.
you just gotta get words
I'm
out.
gonna use that for a different action.
I was wrong. They were using quotes and it was a big, real heavy.
Okay,
They're using
yeah.
her quotes.
Yes, she's
But as far as I know,
living out the rest of her days in Cuba. You know, an older woman, but is still perceived as a terrorist or armed and dangerous or some kind of threat. I think it speaks to what we were talking about them identifying anybody who they feel has a radical ideology as terrorists and criminalizing them. But now that we're talking about it, I feel like it also speaks to the inherent fear of black people. The fear that they're dangerous and that we're violent. That there's always something to be on guard or aware that might happen. You got to be aware around us, like anything can happen, and you gotta be fearful. I think it speaks to that because again, she's an older woman. She's she's just living out the rest of her days, retired at this point. Like there's nothing to fear. I don't think that we've had some older people protesting, but I don't think there's a genuine fear of any 73-year-old people out here really doing any kind of damage. I don't think there's 73-year-olds participating in any of the rioting and looting that's happening. I don't think that there's 73-year-olds that are out here gunning down police officers in their cars. I don't have any reason to believe that this woman would continue to be a threat, but the criminalization and addressing all black people as aggressive or inherently violent, I think that speaks a lot in the situation and speaks real loud to how they believe that that's plausible.
I'm sorry. The reaction was from only one thing that could happen if somebody has a dog and they're walking by the memorials. That would have me making that reaction, but they didn't let it go all the way through. They pulled the dog before, but the dog looked at it. Yeah, so sorry. Oh no, I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Sorry.
Before we wrap this up, Dukes, any final takeaways about the life of Assata Shakur? Anything finally you want to add? If the answer is no, that's all right. It's all right.
Let me see. I do think that it's important for us to take a deeper look at some of the people who have been criminalized from that moment in time in history, and to look deeper as to why was the anti-left, why was the anti-war left so criminalized? And then look at the perception of wars since Vietnam. I think the Vietnam War might be the last war where it was a public consensus that we shouldn't be participating in that war. The Vietnam War might be one of the you not think so? I feel like at least the war that we're in, right? That war that we've been in now, in the time in which our lifespan, there has not been a very strong opposition to it, in the same form that it was for the Vietnam War. I don't think. I feel like the war in Iraq. What would you say?
So I agree with that.
I feel like the war in Iraq and the Afghanistan war was more accepted than that war was.
At the time, yes.
Yeah, at the time. As time has passed, it's looked at, differently. But I mean, every president who has been elected has talked about how they were going to bring troops home and pull the troops out of there, and that hasn't been something that has been happening. In Vietnam, it was politicians actively, it was, I don't know what would have really happened if, Bobby Kennedy was elected, but one of the things that was his one of his strongest platforms was, finding a way to end the war in Vietnam and bring people back home. Reporters, journalism, music, everything. The culture that was going on at that time was very anti-war. Even black people were in a place where, the people don't talk about this a lot, and it's one of the issues I had with the movie about the life of Fred Hampton. But black people were very against black people being in the war. Black people were against black people going to Vietnam and fighting in Vietnam. And that is something that's a very drastic different shift from where black people are now as a community. You don't hear, you ain't hear you don't hear black leaders coming out and saying black people shouldn't be joining the army or joining the military or fighting overseas. And I think a lot of that came from, Martin Luther King Jr. talks about it. He became very vilified when he started speaking out against the war. So I think we need to examine why those people who were against the Vietnam War so heavily became so vilified, and even though in history we look back at the Vietnam War as something that we shouldn't have been a part of. I think the same thing about the Black Panthers and the Black Liberation Movement and Stokely Carmichael and H. Brown and all of these people who, Bobby Seale, all these people who were deeply criminalized and deeply stigmatized, and the Black Panther Party that people, people talk about the Black Panthers and celebrate the Black Panthers, and it's a thing, in black culture to talk about Huey Newton and all of these things, but nobody had ever picked up where the Black Panthers left off at. All the Black Panthers were systematically taken down and systematically put into prison and systematically charged with crimes that they didn't commit. And a lot of those political prisoners, still sit in jail right now to this day. So I think that we have to start doing a job of looking deeper into some of these things and not treating them as if they're things of the past, and not treating them as if they're not things that can't resurface in a even stronger light. Part of the reason that protesters are arrested in the form in which they are arrested in, that traces back to the 60s, traces back to the 70s. And so I think Assata provides an opportunity for us to dissect deeply the individuals and collections. Hey, what's up? Damn, how you doing?
How y'all doing?
We doing good.
Barbecue too, huh?
Yeah, somebody brought something out. Yeah, somebody, I can't remember who it was. Pastor.
We can,
Pastor.
we can wrap this up. But going off a little bit after what you had said, I do want.
No, you good. Yeah, we good. No, we good. We wrapping it up. You good?
Just going off what you had said about political prisoners, I just looked this up as well. The person that was supposed to be tried with Assata Shakur was, I'm not exactly sure how to say his name, Sandiata?
I think it's Sandata. I think I've heard it pronounced Sandata before.
Sandata is still in prison. I looked this up as well. He won't be possible for parole until 2032. He'll be 94 years old. He'll be 94 years old. So just going off that would just be free all political prisoners, free Sandata, free Brandon Sago, free Lamar Coates, free Desmond Bell, these people that were charged with the murder, people were charged with the death of Michael Sago. These people were shot as well by the police. So just going off that, just free all political prisoners, free Sandata, free Brandon Sago, free Desmond, free Lamar Coates, free them all.
All right.